Have you ever wondered what cops look for when they're on duty? Of course you have, you dick. You just clicked on my video. Hey guys, what's going on? People have asked me time and time again what officers look for whenever they're on duty. And of course, this is going to vary from officer to officer. First of all, because everybody's different. Second of all, it's also going to vary based on your training and experience. A good example of that would be the rookie who looks for a masked man sneaking outside the front of a business. An example of a veteran would be noticing a light in the back of a building that is not normally on. So today I am going to explain to you guys what exactly it's like to be a cop and what it's like to look through our eyes whenever we're on duty. As I'm sure you guys can imagine, there's different things that we look for depending on what our job is. So just for the purpose of not making this a 2-hour video, I'm going to use patrol for most of my examples. What I look for during the day and what I look for at night are going to vary, so I'm going to use night shift as an example because things tend to be a little bit more crazy and more of the exciting calls come out then. And there's also a lot of people that like to creep around in the dark. You guys would be surprised how many people creep through the shadows at night. So usually when cops patrol, they have a different mindset than most people do. Most people just drive aimlessly. They have tunnel vision. They're not focused on anything other than what's in front of them. The only time that tunnel vision is really broken is whenever they're distracted. It could be a cell phone, it could be a crying baby in the back. But other than that, how much attention to detail do you really pay attention to whenever you're on the road? People really only tend to be careful on the road whenever there's like heavy traffic or whenever they're at an intersection or stuff like that. But if they are on a straightaway, kind of like I am right now, they're not usually focused on anything else other than what's in front of them and checking their side mirrors from time to time. If cops drove around like this, we would never be proactive. And a large part of law enforcement, at least patrol anyway, is reactive. So most of the time you're going to be answering calls and stuff like that. But good officers are very proactive. They pay attention to their surroundings. They know what's out of place. They know what vehicles are supposed to be in what parking lots. And that just takes time. That takes time. It takes getting to know your community. And that's not something you're going to pick up within the first week of doing this job. Another thing about officers is having tunnel vision like that is extremely dangerous. That's why we always train that, you need to have your head on a swivel all the time. You can't have that kind of tunnel vision when you're going 100 miles an hour with lights and sirens on. So I can't speak for all cops, but there are certain things that I specifically look for. So there are definitely some like routine things that I check out every night that I'm on the road. So if one of those observations is slightly off, that kind of triggers what I like to call my second phase of observation. And that usually involves either circling back and making sure that I actually saw what I saw, or actually getting out of my car and walking up to whatever looks out of place. Now, when I'm driving around the middle of the night, like I said, there's certain things I look for. So as far as cars go, the thing I'm looking for with cars, I'm looking for cars with open doors, cars with open windows, cars that are on and just running. When it comes to businesses, I'm usually looking to see if there's lights that are on inside that aren't normally there. Usually I'll ride by and see if there's any broken glass or anything. So usually the best way to do that at night is by turning on your side alley light. And basically it's the light on the side of the light bar that illuminates that side of the road. Another thing I look for is open doors and just really, anything that looks out of place around a business. Use your common sense. If you see something outside of a business that's definitely out of place at 3 o'clock in the morning, it's probably a telltale sign you need to get out of your car and check it out. And I also pay attention to people walking around or on bikes. If you're leaving the back dark side of a business with a backpack on a bicycle, oh yeah, you and I are going to have a chat. And like I said, different officers are going to be looking for different things. I'm not big on drug enforcement personally, so I don't really look for like hand-to-hand transactions and stuff like that. I'm more worried about people getting their shit stolen than smoking some weed, but that's just me. And there's nothing wrong with the officers that want to try to find dope. That's really just a matter of personal preference. Like I said, I don't care. I'm more worried about people getting their stuff stolen. But there are certain things that you're going to pay attention to differently. So whenever I'm just out on regular patrol, there's certain things I'm going to be looking for. But also whenever I get assigned a call, especially if it's something violent, there's going to be different things that I'm going to be looking for. So the first thing, let's say we have like a domestic violence call. The first thing, whenever I show up, the first thing I'm doing is watching everybody's hands. You would be surprised how many people try to stash something as soon as they see you pull up, like you weren't supposed to see that. And it also serves a dual purpose because that kind of lets you know if anybody has a weapon. And a lot of times I'll never say anything. I'm not going to point it out and make it obvious, but I am going to keep it in the back of my mind. For those of you that have dealt with officers before, and let's say you're like talking to them or you're filing a report or something, if the officer seems uninterested and he's like looking around and stuff, don't be offended. You might be right, he might not be interested, he might be having a bad day, I don't know. But a lot of times if you're talking to us and we're not maintaining eye contact with you, It's probably because we're looking everywhere else. Like, we're trying to make sure everything around us is still safe. So if we're not like actively engaging your eyes, don't get offended. Now let's talk about motor vehicle collisions. I know this probably is not that exciting, but this kind of translates into steps that we take and why we do things the way we do them. And motor vehicle collisions can be very confusing and very intimidating for new officers, especially if there's somebody that's injured, because everything is so fast-paced. A motor vehicle collision is like the only call where you almost have no control over it. You have control over it, but everything, like I said, everything's happening so fast. So for example, I'm going to say there's two cars that got into a collision. One of the drivers is complaining of back pain. I can't speak for other departments, but with ours, anytime there's any injury on scene, you're clear to use lights and sirens. On my arrival, I am looking at the overall scene. I'm trying to see exactly what happened. Is traffic backed up? Is traffic free-flowing? Are they backed up because there's vehicles in the road that were involved in the collision? Or are they just backed up because everybody's rubbernecking and they want to see what's going on? If the vehicles are in the road, I make a mental note. The second thing I do when I approach is I make a very strategic attempt at where I park my car. I park my patrol car far away from the accident scene, way behind it, and this kind of serves two purposes. Number one, it alerts drivers way ahead of time so they have plenty of time to merge over to do what they need to do. The second purpose is for distracted drivers. If someone's on their phone, they're not paying attention, or if they're DUI or something like that, if they slam into the back of my car, nobody in front of my car is going to be injured or affected. The last thing you want to happen is to park 2 feet behind somebody that's been in an accident, and then some dumbass runs right into the back of you, and then your car hits them again. And I use this method on traffic stops too, because there's so many officers that have been hit on the side of the road. After I've parked my car, I get out, and the first thing I do is I try to determine which person is injured, and then I go ahead and call for a squad, and I let them know exactly where the injuries are at, because that's all information they have to have before they arrive. Once another officer arrives on scene, I usually have them stay with the injured person, and then I continue my investigation. So once the injured person is taken care of, that is priority numero uno for me. But once the injured person is taken care of, I get license, registration, and insurance card from both drivers. And while I'm getting these cards, remember I said if there's vehicles in the roadway that I make a mental note, well, now is that time. I go ahead and ask them who is their preferred tow truck that they want to get their car, because usually the tow trucks take about 20 to 40 minutes to get there, so you want to go ahead and get them on the way at least, so that traffic isn't blocked for like the next hour and a half. So after tow trucks are taken care of, information is gathered. I usually go back to my car, I write down everybody's information on a notepad. It's funny because I've been doing this for so long, and I've learned the software so well that I know exactly what pieces of information I need off of those different cards. Like with insurance, for example, there's so much information on an insurance card. All I need is the policy number and the company name. That's it. I don't care about any other number on that card. On the registration, I grab make, model, color, VIN number, tag number, so on and so forth. You get the point. The last thing that I try to do is I try to get statements from both drivers on what they saw happen, their perspective of it. After I have all my witness statements, the last thing I do is I draw a diagram of the cars in the road before the tow trucks get there and move them. I don't know about all police departments, but I think a good chunk of them have to draw a diagram of the collision scene. Like they have to draw out the intersection, everything else in a computer program. We use a program called Easy Street Draw. What's funny about the collision software that we use, one of my former sergeants who we did not like each other at all, he was going in there and approving my reports without even looking at them. And I know that sounds like a good thing. Like, oh, well, your boss doesn't even check your work, he just approves it. That's why is that bad? Well, because that's his job, and if I screw up on something, he needs to be able to catch that before it's finalized, because once it's finalized and it's approved, it now becomes open records. So I used to mess with him. Now, the funny thing about Easy Street Draw, and I don't know why the company decided to include all these diagrams, maybe it's for like military police or something, they actually include things like dogs. They put helicopters. Yes, they have an Apache in Easy Street Draw. So what I used to do is like, I would start grabbing the most random objects. Like I would put a deer, like keep in mind, this is a metropolis, right? This is a city. And I would put like a deer over on the sidewalk, click and drag, put a little deer over here. And every time I did a report, I would make a bigger and bigger object. So one time I put a car like upside down over here by the building. And finally, what got me in trouble, I put an Apache helicopter in the diagram. So long story short, the person ends up coming to the station and picks up a copy of this report, right? He gets it from the records clerk, and he's looking at it and he's like, why is there a helicopter? So I guess the records clerk like notified my sergeant, and he looked at it. He was pissed. Oh my God, he did not think that was funny at all. He started yelling at me and shit. You think this is funny? Yeah. Yeah, a little bit. Well guys, that is it for today's video. If you have any suggestions for things that you want to know, like how we perceive them, let me know in the comment section below, and maybe I'll do another video on it or on that specific topic. I apologize if it was a little dry today. I am a little tired with little man crying all night. I didn't get much sleep, but it's all good. So guys, that is it for today. I did want to mention to you guys that I have a new feature enabled in the Discord chat, and I am super excited about this. So for those of you that are not familiar, if you feel like you want to contribute to the channel, I'm going to leave a link to Patreon down there in the description box. So basically, I've set up a chat room, and there's anywhere from 600 to over 1,000 people in this chat room at any given time. And I'll put the link to that. It's the Discord chat room. So I have a new feature enabled. Whenever somebody pledges a new amount, once you sign up on Patreon, you are automatically given a certain role in the chat room. And you can either be a level 1, 2, or 3 supporter. You get different benefits at different levels. Even if you guys don't want to donate, please join us in the chat room. We would love to chat with you. I pop in there every now and again. So if you guys want to interact with me, join us down there, and I will be more than happy to answer any questions you have or just some friendly chit chat. Thank you guys so much for the support. I appreciate it. I hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you guys soon.